So do you remember this?
Let's stay the course. Let's make sure we show up wherever we have to show up. And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere. We've got to get the children connected to their parents. The children are suffering.
Well, that's Maxine Waters calling for protests against public servants, but in private areas, in restaurants and department stores and walking around. Make sure to get a crowd and drown these people out. Well, her comments led to this.
We believe survivors! We believe survivors! We believe survivors! We believe survivors! We believe survivors!
Beto is way hotter than you do.
We believe survivors!
We believe survivors!
We believe survivors!
God bless you!
Let my wife through.
We believe survivors! For God,
We believe survivors! 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 Sexist, racist, anti-gay! We believe survivors! We believe survivors! We believe survivors!
Well, that was Senator Ted Cruz and his wife Heidi being accosted in a Washington, D.C. restaurant. And then also, do you remember this?
Deportation of over 10,000 children separated from their parents. How can you enjoy a Mexican dinner as you're deporting and imprisoning tens of thousands of people who come here seeking asylum in the United States? We call on you to end family separation and abolish ICE.
Abolish ICE! Abolish ICE! Abolish ICE!
Abolish ICE!
Shame! 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 Shame!
Shame! Shame!
Separation! And
Family separation!
And family separation! And family separation! You don't eat in peace! If kids don't eat in peace, you don't eat in peace! If kids don't eat in peace!
So that was Department of Homeland Security Secretary Christian Nielsen and her husband dining at a Mexican restaurant. And, so all of these are directly attributed to Maxine Waters calling for the disruption of people in private spaces.
Well, now people in the service industry in D.C. promised to shun certain Republican officials or employ other small acts of resistance against them to take their power back. Let's talk about it on Azimuth Podcast. I'm Kimberly McNabb, and my co-host is Barrett McNabb. Well, this is just what we get when we raise a bunch of people needing safe spaces.
Well, for people who vote in increases for minimum wage, they sure seem hell-bent on having less of it.
Mm-hmm. And you can't handle people who don't think like you. You know where people think differently than you about, say, abortion? Well, most of these people from all over the world that these leftists seem to want flooding the border. And, if these brats spoiled by mommy and daddy ever had to pay a tab in their life, maybe they'd understand, poor service means poor tip. Consistently bad service also means, hey, I'm not going back to that place.
Yeah, so that's kind of what these wait staff and managers and bartenders are saying, is that they're going to do exactly that. If you place your order and you are a recognized Republican, recognized conservative, you place your order at a restaurant and they're going to deliberately put orders ahead of yours in order to make sure that you suffer and they can take back some of that power. So something that might take 10 minutes to come out, your main course, is going to come out in 30 minutes because they're going to have people go ahead of you. If you if there's a preferred seating arrangement or seating order or location in a restaurant that's ideal, they're going to make sure that you get the worst table in the restaurant. And it doesn't even matter if you already have reservations for a specific table. They're going to go ahead and say, look, that was booked, and you're in the back corner with all the lights out, next to the bus boys coming in and out with that door slamming. So some of that same thing for the for bartenders. There, you put in a drink order. And there's people that are that are next to you that haven't put anything in yet. They're going to slow roll and slow play your drink order to make sure that you just have to suffer just a little bit more. And honestly, one, it's political discrimination, but still it's childish.
It's very short-sighted. I mean, poor tips, because people tend to tip based on service, and they get bad service, they're not going to want to come back. And also, if your boss notices that you're doing this, you may get fired, because they don't want their business going down the hole with your political ideology. Like, no, I want to make money, and if you're going to chase people away, then you're fired. I can get rid of you. I may not be able to get those customers back.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kimberly, especially since in this particular article, one of the main actors of this, and when I say actors, I don't mean in a movie script, but one of the bad actors, one of the people that have said they're going to deliberately provide slow service, identified her restaurant, and she was terminated yesterday.
So now she has no power and no job.
Right, and people know who she is, so she's kind of put that out there on social media. But still, I mean, just think about it. If a restaurant, what's super important for them is to look at the color of the money and make sure it's green. That's really what it boils down to. I mean, you do have restaurants that seem to want to roll the dice. I think I recall a Virginia restaurant, or maybe it was Maryland, where Nikki Haley and her son were dining, and the owner came to their table and kicked him out of the restaurant and said, "You are not welcome here." And of course, there was calls to boycott, but then those are overshadowed or mitigated by liberals that are going to the restaurant.
Yeah, celebrating.
Yeah, so this is like hallowed ground now for discrimination. But I really think this is a very slippery slope. I mean, obviously, political ideology is not a protected class, but I really think it should be, because you really shouldn't be discriminating on race or gender or age, in job places and things like that. And you shouldn't discriminate against political affiliation either.
No, and if you only vote for people who think exactly like you, if you only friend people who think exactly like you, or even serve them, then eventually, okay, they don't think exactly like I do on this and this and this, and then you're trimming away so many people or family relatives out of holiday gatherings. Eventually, you'll be all by yourself.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this from, just in general by and by. Can you imagine applying for a job and the human resource manager says, well, are you a Republican or are you a Democrat? Or you're applying to colleges, and are you a Republican or are you a Democrat? Well, you can't come in if you're a Republican. You can't get the job if you're a Republican. It's the same. You can't come into this restaurant if you're a Republican. And so I really think political ideology and affiliation should be this protected class. But when you look at what society is coming down to, and you're polarizing yourself, you are starting to see this schism in the United States. And I wouldn't say you're starting to see it. It's here now. And you have industries that are coming up as conservative industries in order to have razors and marketplaces
it's to offer an alternative.
An alternative, and so some of that's important. But the reason that they had to do that, they had to start those up, is because there was just violations of moral and ethical and religious beliefs of conservatives, and so they kind of had to do this. But still, if you go and you buy razors, or you go to conservative marketplaces, they don't ask if you're a Democrat and say you can't shop there. I mean, they don't discriminate. So why should a restaurant be able to discriminate? And especially, just this day and age of posting online at your every thought and things like that, and just to identify yourself and identify
if
your
it
restaurant.
remotely affects your job, don't put it online,
Yeah.
people. Come on. But, this is just indicative of, a whole generation of people when the parents mow down every problem in life for them, starting from the time they're babies. By the time they get to be an adult, they can't handle anything that doesn't toe their line or anything that doesn't make them go yay. But, the parents, instead of mowing down all their problems in life, should have taught them the golden rule. How do you want to be treated? Treat those how you want to be treated. Do you want to be thrown out of a restaurant because you voted Democrat? I think not.
Right. Well, we saw this article. We saw how ridiculous it was. But, it's passed as prologue. And to have, Maxine Waters call for, all of these protests and you're in a restaurant and to go surround them and cause them grief and harm and things and ruin their evening. We have the servers and the bartenders saying they're going to do the same thing. And, it's really sad. And we saw this and, again, passed as prologue. And so it looks like it's going to start all over again. So thank you for tuning in to this episode of Azimuth Podcast, and please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all of the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.